Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the entire PNW, and actually just down I-5 a little bit today as well. I'll tell you more about that in a second. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and I'm with my co-host, Linda Popky from down in the Bay Area. That's what I meant by I-5. Linda, welcome back. We'll talk to you in a second. Listen, today I'm excited to have our guest, Brett Clark. Brett is a return guest. He is the owner and operator of BC Fitness. After 25 years in retail management, Brett took his passion for fitness combined with his love for helping others, and he created a unique fitness experience. BC Fitness was born during the height of the pandemic based on a desire to provide an alternative to the stereotypical gym atmosphere and personal trainer persona. Brett's mission is to offer a comfortable private facility that reduces anxiety and intimidation, allowing his clients to focus on what matters most, that's themselves. And Brett is a proud sponsor of this podcast. Thank you for that. Welcome, Brett. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher. We're on YouTube. Linda, what are we?
We are ubiquitous.
We are. Now, listen, before we bring on Brett, Linda, my understanding, because look, we follow each other on Facebook, and my understanding is you had a birthday yesterday. So I want to, in front of our 7.5 listeners, I want to wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, you know, you can't get away from having a birthday because everybody on Facebook knows that you've had one.
Yeah, you absolutely, because you see the birthday wishes, you can leave your birthday messages. I'm a birthday guy. I love birthdays. Our family have birthday weeks, and sometimes, you know, they even get extended a little bit. Birthdays are probably bigger, not probably bigger than Christmas or Easter or Thanksgiving or anything like that. We're all about birthdays. Did you do anything fun?
I went over to the coast to Half Moon Bay and had some great fish at a seafood restaurant and sat by the bay and just looked at the ocean and had a good time.
Good for you. Good for you. One of the funny things I always remember about birthdays, my mom, when I asked her, I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade, because everybody knew, you know, I don't know how we talked about how old your mother was. So I asked her, she told me she was 39. Funny thing was, is she was 40 when I was born. So she had the Jack Benny thing going. Brett's probably too young to remember who Jack Benny is. But we're going to welcome in my good friend of the show, sponsor of the show, Brett Clark. Brett, first, before I let you wax poetic a little bit about your business, you're one of my favorite stories on the Shrimp Tank, because it was February of 2021 when you were on, when Brad Berger was still hanging out with us. You were doing the true side hustle with BC Fitness. You just started it. You're doing it as a side hustle. In fact, you were coming to us from an office of your from your office with your employer. And I remember asking you, is there anything we shouldn't talk about? And you said, well, my employer doesn't know it, but I'm going to be turning this side hustle into a full hustle next week when I quit. And so I love that story. We can talk about it today. Brett, how have things been going the last 2.5 years since you turned your side hustle into the only hustle?
Man, it's been going absolutely fantastic. It's actually really nice because this is I'm on the Shrimp Tank podcast right now, coming from my own office and not a corporate office instead. So that's kind of nice. I don't have to kind of turn down the volume. I don't have to anything. I get to explore this. But no, you're absolutely right. You know, I'd like to say that the Shrimp Tank launched my career, Dan.
I would like to say that. I'm glad you said it first. It's your words. The Shrimp Tank podcast launched BC Fitness.
Yeah. That's you know, when I posted on Facebook, I said, you know, hashtag this is happening, and so here we go. You know, like you said, a week later, I stepped away from my 25-year career, and you know what? The only real regret I have in any of this, Dan, is I didn't do it sooner. That's the only regret. So
Well, that's terrific. It's wonderful. And you launched right in the middle of the pandemic too, which is kind of interesting. So going back, we were talking about birthdays a minute ago, and of course, none of us are getting any younger, right? Except for, I guess, Dan's mother, but none of us are getting younger. And what happens, you get older and things that you used to be able to do, I don't quite understand. I can't do anymore. I've had this knee injury, just had surgery. So what kind of advice do you give to your clients who are, let's say, they like to say mature. I don't know if people, as you get older, you're more mature, but clients who are a little bit out of the teen years, let's put it that way.
well, that's not a problem. The term personal trainer is so broad, right? It means so many different things, and it stereotypically means so many different things. But actually, my biggest passion is what I call, you're looking for the term, is what I call modern adults. Now, modern adult is what I classify anybody that's 50 and older. And so that's actually where one of my biggest passions is working with modern adults, because what we did in our 30s and what we did in our 40s do not translate to what we can do in our 50s. There's a lot of changes that have happened. And so what I do is I help people navigate through what they used to do versus what they can do, and how we prepare them for the next levels in their life. And ultimately for what I call the 3 G's of the modern adult, which is gardening, grandkids, and golf. So that's what I do, is I help provide the ability for people to enjoy typically one of or all of those 3 things for the modern adult.
And I know we're going to dive into probably a bunch of those, but I'm going to bring this up, Brett, because I think it's so important. And I think every guest we've ever had on has acknowledged it in some way. Modern adults tend to be running businesses, whether they're the CEO, they're the business owner, they're the president, they got a career, whatever it is. Those are the people that we talk to in this entrepreneur show. Every one of them would tell you that, yeah, my health is important. It's a big, yet too many don't actually put their words to action. They know it, they get guilty of it, they regret it. But there are a number of excuses that are used, everything from time. Well, actually, mostly it's, I think, time. What would you be saying to the person listening who is a CEO, running their own business, managing their own career, whatever it is, who is saying, I can't find time. I'm busy from beginning to the day to end. I don't have time to do it. I know it's important. What do I do?
Well, there's a couple of things, Dan. The first thing that I would do is tell them that you make time for the things that are important to you. And ultimately what should be important to you is your health, your longevity. And not only that, but just your sharpness, your mental sharpness, your physical sharpness, all of those things. The other thing that I would do, sometimes if I got to get down in the weeds, I'll ask them. I said, your phone is really good about tracking your apps. So you do me a favor, go onto your Facebook app and see how much time you spend on Facebook. And, but let's see, could we translate that time into exercise time as well? But also, you don't have to have giant elaborate gym setups. You don't have to have, massive amounts of equipment. All you need is 30 minutes, some lightweight dumbbells, some resistance bands, and these exercises can be custom choreographed to work with your time. I work with business people. I work with CEOs that they just push away from their desk. They get online super fast. We slam out a 30-minute we call it a power hour, and they go right back to work again. And so yeah, that's one of the first things that I would really tell them is that, exercise is really simple and it doesn't require a lot of time. And you can do it, very simply.
Okay, so I'm really impressed that you can do the power hour in 30 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
That. Okay,
they have 30 minutes to spare. They can even grab a bite to eat.
That's great. So I've had a personal trainer for years, and of course we hit this pandemic and everything stopped. And then when we realized it wasn't going to come back shortly, we started working out over Zoom and FaceTime, whatever. So that brings up the question, we can do this remotely, but what other technology is happening in fitness? How is tech kind of changing the way we go about fitness?
That's actually a great question. And that's a fantastic, there's been some great innovations coming out in fitness. The Peloton craze, really kind of took off and sort of personified this idea that there's some tech-based fitness. Then you add Apple Watches and Fitbits and all these other types of things where we're now quantifying our fitness. I am actually working on a product right now, or not a product. I'm actually working on a service right now that is going to integrate a lot more tech-based type of training. So using some devices, one of the devices that we're currently testing is a tonal device, where we're integrating tech-based fitness into how we can do that and keep it quantified for the clients. Because people love data. I mean, we're in a data-driven world, and if we can find quantification in our fitness, that's what we're really finding. Hats off to Peloton for really kind of starting that and paving the way for places like Tonal and for Mirror to come in with their quantification as well.
I'm gonna throw this in because I should have done it right after you answered the question about CEOs. I do want to go to Tonal and Peloton and all of that as a follow-up. But one of my clients, one of my very good clients I've had for years, I won't say his name, but his biggest need was to lose weight. He weighed 295 pounds. Today he weighs 229. I introduced him to Brett Clark. He's not in the state. He's not in the same state. Everything is done virtually. I don't think that you have ever met him in person,
No.
but everything's been done, and he's been with you now, I think a couple of years, maybe a year and a half. But he's lost,
Yeah.
and he's kept it off, and he's down underneath 230 pounds, and even to the point that we are now talking with his life insurance company to change his rating from where it was before, save him a ton of money on his life insurance. So
I love that.
when we're talking about metrics, those are some real metrics there. Maybe I'll just stick with this, Brett, because those are some real metrics. It's not only, the change in you physically, it's a change in you mentally, it's a change of, financially. Really, quite frankly, I like to think of CEOs and entrepreneurs as athletes, and that data right there, that means time, money, energy, passion, all of that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And yeah, and the gentleman you speak of, phenomenal success story. Again, we started at 300 pounds, and he's lost 70 pounds. He's kept it off, and done an absolute tremendous job. And Dan, you're right. That's the success stories are the ones where I hear that somebody's gotten off their blood pressure medication, or somebody is now off their diabetic medication, or even better, they're getting a better rating on their life insurance. All these other things. Or even, we talk about, long-term care, and what you do, long-term care. I work on the other side. I care for people for the long term. We don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about long-term care if we've been caring for ourselves for the long term. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. So all that data is absolutely phenomenal data. And, we talked a little bit about the COVID world and the birth of online. I found my ability to service people globally, nationally, not globally yet, but nationally, because I have no geographical fences, because all we got to do is jump on for 30 minutes like we did with that client there, and we do a tremendous job, and they make large amounts of success. And Sean is much more successful in every aspect of his life, based upon the fact that he puts in his 30 minutes. That's all we do. We do 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes every day?
He does 30 minutes 5 days a week, and I spend 3 days with him online.
That's great. So
Yeah.
that brings up something I think is really important, which is our medical system, and maybe our insurance, but health insurance system is based on, when you get sick, we treat disease. We don't treat health. We don't do prevention.
Unfortunate.
So how can we, I think a lot of the stuff, whether it's this client or other people, if we could have worked with people earlier, we would have prevented a lot of illness, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do to kind of help people get into thinking more, being preventative? Because we don't go to the doctor until something hurts, right? We don't pay attention until we're in trouble.
You know what? Thanks for asking, Linda. I'm gonna go on a limb here, and I'm gonna tell everybody my true passion. My true passion is to put big pharma out of business. So just to let you know, big pharma, I'm coming for you. So, but no, that's we medicate. We put bandages on things. We treat the result and not the action. And so what this does is it allows people really to get in front of that. And so we don't need blood pressure medication, or let's just say blood pressure medication isn't necessarily always something that needs to be elongated. It doesn't have to be done over a period of time. It's designed so that you don't stroke out until we find better results. I am the better results for that. So we can get people into healthy states. They can lower their blood pressure medications. We can lower A1Cs and not have to go into diabetics. You can take calcium pills for bone density all you want until your liver fails, but nothing is better than strength training when it comes to building bone density, warding off osteopenia and osteoporosis. Exercise is the miracle drug. Everyone's looking for this miracle drug. I have it. It's called exercise.
Well, you know what? Part of our exercise is Brett, we got to pay the bills, and we're going to do that. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Brett Clark, for our hot or not section of the show, speaking of muscles, we're going to ask him about mirror muscles and what that means. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. Hey, does this sound like you? I'd love to write a book, but I just don't have time. In fact, I'm not even sure where to start. Maybe you have a compelling story to share or valuable advice for clients and prospects. If only you could get that story out of your head and into a published format. Think you don't have time to write a book? Think you aren't a good enough writer to get your message across? Or think this sounds all too overwhelming? Well, think again. At Leverage to Market Associates, we help aspiring authors transform that long-stuck book idea into an attractive published work. If you've written most of your book, we can help you edit it and drive through the production process. If you're not sure where to start, we'll coach you through the creative process to organize your thoughts and create a compelling book outline. And if you're just not comfortable writing a book yourself, we can ghostwrite it for you. Contact Linda Popky at Leverage to Market Associates for a complimentary evaluation of your nonfiction book concept today and bring your book to life.
Thanks, Dan. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound and beyond. I'm Linda Popky. Our guest today is Brett Clark, and our next segment is Hot or Not.
Brett, you've been a guest here before. We put you through the hot or not ringer. You know exactly what's going on. You're going to tell us whether our question is hot or not and why or why not. So you're talking about strength. I've got a few questions on that. But we're going to start with this. Hot or not? Mirror muscles.
Hey, it's hot because you're looking at them, but truly, there's a whole backside that you got to work on too. You know, a lot of times everybody wants to do the chest and the arms and all that stuff, but you got back, you got calves, you got all the other kind of things that you need to work on too. So is it hot? It's hot in the mirror, but man, it's not, because you got backside stuff to work on too.
So I'm going to talk about that backside and all sides and all of that, because actually the funny thing is, you and I have talked about this a lot. Balance is important when you're talking about building muscles. You know, mirror muscles look great in the mirror, but sometimes you forget. I missed my leg workouts, Dave, for like 40 years or something. I like doing all the other stuff, and now I'm paying for it because it's hard. It's really hard. You know, I was on actually, Brett, you'll find this interesting, and I want you to comment on it. I was on a webinar yesterday, and it's about golf fitness. And one of the people who founded this company talked about, and he's a chiropractor, he talked about there's research that shows that after age 60, 65, you can regain mobility, that's not lost forever, that you can regain mobility, but you can't regain strength. And that's why strength training right now, wherever you are right now, is so vitally important, because if you lose it, you may gain some strength again, but you'll never be back to where you were before unless you're working on it. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, and what happens is for us males, you know, at 35, we really start to see a decrease. You know, our body's natural testosterone levels start to decrease, and at 60, it really begins to accelerate. Muscle loss really begins to accelerate. So that's absolutely right. And so although muscle loss or atrophy is inevitable, you can slow this process down. And one of those ways, like you said, is strength training. The other one, Dan, that people don't get enough of is protein. Protein, intaking enough protein, and then also creating that the essential strengths on those muscles. I had somebody that asked me the other day, "Hey, how do I know that if I can still build strength?" And this is a technical personal trainer way to tell. I said, "Do you have a small mirror? Okay, put it in front of your mouth and blow on it. Did you fog it? Because if you fogged it, you can still build strength." And so that was technically how they could still do it. If you're still alive, we can still make some improvements. So yeah, I do believe that, Dan. But the sooner that you work at it, the better it's going to be. If you're 65 and you haven't worked out in your entire life, it's not too late, because what we can do is we can still slow it or pause that atrophy that's going to happen.
Cool. So start now. There's no better time than now, right?
Nope. Start now. I start people in their 70s. I've started people in their 80s. When we can still get after it. We can still go get it.
So you said a couple minutes ago that you want to put all the big pharma companies out of business, which I think is an interesting goal. But more important, I think, when there's the drugs, but there's also diets. We've got a dozen diet companies or more that are, huge, and there's always new diets coming up all the time. Hot or not, diets versus working out versus now we have these new weight loss drugs. So how does that all kind of fit together?
There's multiple components in there, Linda. We're gonna need another show for that for sure. But let me unpack that a little bit. Number one, there's a lot of different diets out there on the market. There's a lot of different diets, or that you're gonna hear. My friend lost this, or my friend did this. Ultimately, what I'm gonna break it out to your listeners right now. So I need all your listeners to get out a pen and paper. I'm gonna tell you the best diet plan out there right now. You ready? It's the one that works for you. That's the one. So if you can ward off carbs for the rest of your life, then hey, maybe keto's your thing. Maybe carnivore diet. If that makes sense to you, to eat only proteins, that makes sense to you. What makes sense to me is to eat proteins, fats, and carbs. To integrate all macronutrients. Now here's the other.
Create a diet around chocolate, because that's my thing. I'd like.
Hey, anything, the thing I don't like about the term diet is restrictive. And so what I like to do is I like to put people on nutrition plans, because nutrition plans are limiting. And what I you just had a birthday, Linda. What I don't want to do when you restrict somebody on something, your inner teenager comes out. And I'm really trying to repress your inner teenager, Linda. So I'm not trying to tell you not to eat chocolate, right? So we'll just limit that chocolate. But a good friend of mine, his name's Dan Weedin. You may have met him before. He said quite often, you cannot out exercise a poor diet. And so it doesn't matter what kind of exercise you do at the gym. The true results are going to come as a result of the end of your fork.
I'm gonna need to meet that guy. That guy sounds like a smart feller. Hey, speaking of smart fellas, I'm not gonna phrase this in a hot or not. I'm just gonna bring it up because it's something that's actually changed since we spoke last. Really, I think it's advanced. Let's put it this way. You talked about tonal, and I don't know if you have LeBron James going to be doing stuff for you and helping to market what you're doing with tonal, but I know that you're doing work with clients on that. When we spoke last time, 2.5 years ago, Peloton was certainly big. It still is. YouTube videos were big, and they still are. The challenge that you brought up was when you're talking, when you're hearing Peloton or YouTube, it's not a two-way street. This person doesn't know your injuries. They don't know your, what limitations that you may have, and you're likely to get hurt by doing something that might work for somebody 30 years younger than you. It's not working for you. But with tonal, I think that changes it. I mean, am I correct in that? We're now getting equipment, AI, whatever it is, that is able to say, you got all the equipment there that you need, and I'm going to create a plan for you. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I've been familiar with the tonal for a few years now. I trained a client for a great many years virtually on his tonal before having one in my studio. Now I've been with the tonal for about 7 weeks now. And Dan, I'll be flat honest with you. Sorry, LeBron. Sorry, Serena. There is some limitations to the tonal, because it doesn't know you. And so the ultimately the way that we've set up tonal in our studio with myself and my intern who's we've been really integrating ourselves with this, is that we still have to take that knowledge of who Linda is, who Dan is, what their goals are, what their abilities are, and program them into the tonal ourselves. Tonal has 750 different exercises. So number one, it's kind of like when you go into the gym. When you get there, what do you do? And so when you log on to Tonal, what do you do? And so, really, although they're doing a good job to help integrate that, you really need a couple of things. Number one, you need somebody to help program that for you. And the other thing that Tonal can't provide, which is actually my job, is accountability. So although I'm a personal trainer, really accountability partner is probably better. It just looks funny on a business card.
That's pretty funny. So, so one of the things I like about personal trainers and working this way is you don't have to go into the gym, right? One of the best parts about the pandemic is we didn't have to go into the gym. The gym kind of came to us. Do you see that changing? Are gyms no longer hot? Are they going to go away? Are we going to see the end of those big gyms? Or do you think they're going to get reinvented?
I still think that gyms are going to be a thing. There's a sense of community. I think sometimes, it's definitely a lot more affordable, than coming to an individual studio. There will become a time, expansion is definitely on my horizon. I never want to own a gym. Everything that I will always have, BC Fitness will always maintain the mission of providing private, personalized, one-on-one training. And that can't be achieved in a gym atmosphere. So there will be a subset of people that will say, I want that private personalized training. I'm 300 pounds. I feel self-conscious. I've never been to a gym. I'm 60 years old. I've never been to a gym. I'm self-conscious. And so there will always be that subset of people, which I think is continuously growing as my business continues to build and word of mouth continues to go out there. People are saying, you know what, that's what I want. I don't want, I want a personal trainer, but I don't want to be in a gym atmosphere. I want it to be private. And so that's where I think where you're going to see a lot of the shift is that people are going to still continue to go to the gym on one end, but more people are going to say, I don't like that gym atmosphere. I don't want to be there. I want to focus on me and not everything else around me.
Which I think leads me into an entrepreneurial question. I mean, we've been certainly talking a lot about what you do and how you help clients, and we'll continue that. But this is also an entrepreneurial journey. And when you're talking about helping clients, somebody out there might say, yeah, but Brett, there's only one of you. How do you scale this model? Because if you're working with clients, even if they're 30-minute stretches, there's only enough time, in the day, and you're only one person. 2.5 years into this, how have you changed? And what are your plans for the future?
That's a great question, Dan. And I'll be honest with you, this was kind of going to be sort of my semi-retired job. I was just going to, I was going to train a few people. I was going to take lots of naps, but my love for fitness is too great. My love for helping others is just too great. And so I fill my schedule. And that's been really kind of one of the big struggles. But what's going on right now? I've made a leap. I've found an intern. She prefers apprentice. She doesn't like intern, yep. but I found an apprentice who has been working with me. She's getting her personal trainer certification, which for me is so important because I need to make sure that I have the right people in place. I just can't go hire a personal trainer. I just can't go find a personal trainer and bring them in. I need the right people because what I do is different than personal training. I walk with people on their fitness journey. I become part of their fitness journey. And so that's the next level. Say, what is the next level of scaling? The next level of scaling is finding like-minded people that believe in the areas of fitness that I believe in, and then creating, again, private workout environments for them. So for me, it's about finding a larger facility, being able to double or replicate or triplicate what I'm trying to do, and then as well as bringing people more into tech-based fitness. One of the things that we're going to work on is creating a tech-based facility where we have different tech devices where we can have people work either with trainers or virtually or even independently, and work on fitness. The one of the things that you mentioned, Linda, without getting too far off topic, is that, about driving, people going to a gym. A lot of times that is good for people because we can just slough off at home sometimes. We can just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it today, or something else has come up. But when you have to physically get in your vehicle and go somewhere, it sort of changes things. There's this whole different level of commitment, and that's what we're working on doing right there, Dan. So tech-based fitness is moving in a direction, and then BC Fitness is moving in a direction as well. So we're still going to have tactile training, also mixed with tech-based training as well.
Well, this is so much fun. I know we're gonna have to have you back on because there's so many shows we can do out of this. We do have to take our second break now. We're going to take that short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Brett Clark, for our Plead the Fifth section of the show. And Brett, I think we probably let you off the hook the first time on Plead the Fifth. You're coming back, you're a sponsor. We're going to turn up the heat. We are going to talk about dumb excuses. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www. I don't know if we have to say those anymore, at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Linda Popky, and our guest today is Brett Clark, and our next segment is Plead the Fifth.
Brett, Linda and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about fitness, about health, about life, dogs maybe. We'll throw in a whole bunch of things, but we're going to ask you to answer them. You can plead the fifth once. I don't think you're going to plead the fifth, but I think we're going to try to make these a little bit tougher for you. Brett, we all have excuses. Even Dan has excuses. I bet you do too, and I bet you've heard them all. Brett, plead the fifth. What is the dumbest excuse? You don't have to give the name of the person, but what's the dumbest excuse you've ever had from someone about either why they didn't work out, why they are quitting, why they won't work out, something around that? What's the dumbest excuse you've ever heard?
I get quite a few of those. And excuses are probably one of the main things we go through, but there's not really, all of them are kind of dumb to me. So every excuse is pretty dumb when you're missing out on it. But some of the things that I've heard is that a lot of we mentioned pets. A lot of it relates to pets. I have to pick up pet meds for my neighbor's dog, or something completely obscure that you couldn't call somebody out on, right? That that you're like, man, that really doesn't make sense at all.
So exercise strap, right?
Yeah. So probably some stuff around there, but unfortunately I don't really have any specific ones because they all kind of drive me nuts, to be honest with you.
What's the funniest one, maybe?
The funniest excuse?
Yeah.
Man, nothing really comes to mind.
All right. You're gonna have to mark these down for the next time you're on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I really stunk that one up.
Okay,
Linda, why don't you try one on him now?
Let me different angle at this. Okay, you want to work out, you want to get people fit, you want to get them going. When did you tell us about a client that you just couldn't make things work with? What was, what happened, what went wrong, and how did you tell them, no, this isn't going to work?
That is always a devastating piece. When we have to fire clients, it's really, probably for all of us, probably for all three of us, we've been in that position where you have to make that really difficult choice. And one of the things that's most important for me is that discovery session that I have, is that consultation we have. And I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. And what I want to know from these clients is that, are you willing to make the changes? Are you in the place where it's time to make changes? Because I only want to spend my days with people that want to make those changes. And so I'm very, very selective about the people that I take and where they are in their fitness journey. But from time to time, I do make mistakes, and ultimately what it comes down to is this: they're just not ready to do the things they need to do in order to be successful. That's where those excuses come in, you know. But I think probably for me, you know, if we just drill it down to one, is when they don't take ownership. I had a client that was blaming me for her lack of success. She wasn't being forthright with me on the scale. Her scale numbers. I work off mathematics. A lot of that's mathematics, and her scale numbers didn't make sense to me. And I asked her very politely to please take a picture of your scale because your scale's not making any sense to me. And she was offended. And so she ultimately, when she took a picture of the scale, she gained 8 pounds, but that was only because she did binge eating because I made her feel so badly about herself. And so we just decided it was just time, you know, that it was just time that we just didn't work together anymore. Because I can take a lot, but when you blame me for your own actions, then I have a hard time with it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a lesson. I do have another plead the fifth coming, but and I hope I don't forget it in time. I'm going to say this, but that's a really good corollary for all of us in anything that we work with clients on. Candidness. I mean, you know, not being honest about what the scale says because you don't want to be embarrassed. That's not helping. You know, we're all kind of in a business where we really need to have honesty. Even if it's embarrassing, you know, even if it's humbling, otherwise it's just not going to work, especially when you're using metrics. So I'm going to remember before I forget, this is a plead the fifth. You're talking about clients. I want to know about those verbally abusive clients that you have. Have you ever had anybody to your face drop some bombs, you know, and call you names and maybe even fire you on the spot only to rehire you later?
Quite often. And the beauty of that, there's just number one thing to recognize, Dan. And you know, if you're feeling guilty about this, number one thing to recognize is
I'm
Jim
feeling
Tourette's
guilty. You know, I'm talking about me. Obviously, people need to know that he's talking about me.
Jim Tourette's is a real thing. So anything that's said in the gym or in the course of an exercise or after an exercise cannot be held against one individual. But yes, it is quite often that happens. But here's one of the things that I do want to say is that it absolutely 100% fills my cup. When I get a client, probably the best one, you know, to go off on a tangent. I had a client that came in the studio. It was a studio guy, so you're off the hook, Dan.
Good.
I had a studio guy that came in and he said, you know, we haven't been really working my legs hard. We need a hard workout day today. And I don't try to blow any of my clients out of the water. That's not what I try to do. That's not my role as a trainer. I want people to enjoy their exercise. Anyway, we got done with his exercise. The next day he calls me up and he's in his car and he calls me up and I'm going to pass the expletives because there was a series of expletives when I picked up the phone. But he said, I'm stuck in my car right now. I can't get out of my car. What are you going to do about it? And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, Bud, never again. Never again. I said, okay, I'll see you next week. But so that's how those go.
So you know what, it's interesting because obviously, you know, fitness was a passion of yours and it's something you did in your spare time. Now it's your business. And so you have to stay fit too. I mean, nobody wants to work out with a personal trainer or a fitness coach who's not fit themselves. Tell us about what you struggle with. Don't you have a day where you go, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to take a day off and I want to go eat some ice cream or something. How do you get through that? What do you struggle with?
You know, work-life balance, you know, just like all of us, I struggle with that work-life balance. I'm around it all day. You know, sometimes, I find excuses, even myself, you know, I'll be in the studio and I'll decide to check emails and then boom, all of a sudden my workout is gone. So, you know, what I do, my strategy is I still take a partner. I have people that I work with that come to the studio that are my workout partners. And so, because I won't let them down, we always find a way to let ourselves down somehow, but we rarely want to let others down around them. So I did, you know, when I went from when I went to BC Fitness, and I did a good for a while, but I kind of went through that, trying to locate me, trying to locate how does me as the business owner, how does the entrepreneur, how do I make time for myself? And I really struggled with that. I'll be honest with you. I went probably 3 months of just struggling. But also the other side of that, Linda, is that also creates that credibility with my clients, because I want to share those stories with my clients of my own struggles, of my own challenges that I have, and how I'm working through to overcome those challenges. And so that's how I do it. I take a partner. I encourage other people around, so if you're struggling with fitness, ask a friend. I don't say ask a spouse, because that's a tough one, but ask a friend to help you. Ask somebody, say, hey, I'm really struggling. Would you want to work out with me? Or would you want to be my accountability partner? And that's because even as a coach, as an accountability partner myself, I still have my own accountability partners as well.
Brett, this has been great. I got one last question. I can't believe the time has gone so fast, but looking back, 2.5 years since you got started with this, and I've known you for probably nearly a decade, and I know you're positive, and I know you're always on the positive end of thinking of things, and you knew this was going to be successful. But what's one thing that you didn't anticipate as you look back now and say, well, I didn't see this coming, or this was harder than I thought, or this was easier than I thought, or what was maybe your biggest surprise since starting BC Fitness?
I came out of business management. I managed the operations side of businesses, and I was ready to take on anything, P&Ls, operations, expenses. I was familiar with all that stuff, staffing, gross profits, sales. There's a whole back end that I didn't know anything about, right? There was bookkeeping that has to be done. There was so many different aspects of it. And so that was probably the part that kind of took me by surprise, is that not knowing, thinking that I knew as much as I did, but really in the end, not knowing as much. And so I wanted to do it all myself, just be this hands-on. And it didn't take long to realize that I needed to outsource things that didn't bring success to me in the studio. And so, getting an accountant, getting a risk management advisor, getting some of these pieces in place so that I could be more successful in the studio and not focus on those things that didn't bring me joy, but finishing up at the end of a 10-hour day and then going and doing QuickBooks for 2 hours didn't bring me joy. So
Okay, well, you've brought us a lot of joy here today talking about all this good stuff. So thank you so much for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. And listeners who want to get in touch with you and find out how they can be unstoppable with their fitness, where can they go to get more information?
The best place is our website, bcfitstudio.com. There's a slew of phenomenal information on there, from the blogs to the videos. And then just ways to contact us. The other thing too, if anybody wants to contact me directly, they certainly can at brett.bcfitnessstudio@gmail.com, or they can simply text me at 360-689-541. Love to talk about fitness, love to have conversations. Welcome them all.
Fantastic. And after you've checked out Brett's website, check out all of our replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Wherever you get your podcast, iHeart, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, because damn, we are
ubiquitous.
And while you're doing that, follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Brett, thanks for being on. I am on track. I've done I see Brett once a week. I am on track. I've done all my workouts, including today. So I'm good to go. And I'll look forward to seeing you, as always, on Friday, where I will swear and curse at you and fire you again until the next week. But seriously, thanks for being on the show. It was a lot of fun. And thank you for being a great sponsor. Linda, thanks again for having you on. This was fun, as always. And happy birthday to you. Everyone, our next show will be on Wednesday, June 21st, which happens to be my anniversary. I don't know how that just came up this year on a Wednesday, June 21st. Our guest will be Danny Steiger. Danny is the CEO of Lumber Traders, Inc. Monica Blackwood will be my co-host. In the meantime, be safe, be well, be prosperous, and of course, please be healthy, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.